Okay, so welcome everyone. Thanks for giving us a little bit of your time to share with us. We are very happy to be here in this Sónar+D experience. And today I would love to share with you and I would love to talk with you a little bit about our project and our collective and our journey and hopefully a journey that we can share together and can touch a little bit of our heart. And I will tell you who I am. I am Danny González. Nice to meet you all. And I am part of a collective that is called BeAnotherLab. Our origins were about being a multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary group of artists. Our origins also came from being from all over the world, from being in different countries. And our beginning is also related about friendship. It's also related about casualties, about magic, about finding each other in these crazy times when you don't know if one thing is related to another. Also, when this group began, we were just wondering about the possibilities of this mind exercise, about how would the world would be really like if you can really put yourself in someone else's shoes, no? Inhabit someone else's skin. So we started to wonder that in a very beautiful way, this ancient proverb of putting yourself in someone else's skin has come across different cultures. But I will, before I go to the project, I would love to share with you or to think with you together about there is a lot of interconnected phenomena when we are talking about empathy. No, there is the vicarious pain. Vicarious pain is when you see another person having something that it hurts physically, and then you feel this hurts just by looking. I will put an example. When you see a member of your family or someone very close to you that suddenly hits the knee with a wooden table or something like that, you automatically have this sensation, and that's what we call vicarious pain. There is another, the perspective taking. Perspective taking, I will say that is like a more deep exercise, rational exercise about thinking and imagining the situation of the other. Giving it like a tough process of actually, okay, maybe this person went to this in this morning and in this afternoon. Okay, maybe have difficulty to do this or that, and at some point you start to really put you in an exercise of imagining the situation of the other. That's perspective taking. And then we have empathy. We have empathy that is actually like this emotional response, to the other, to the feelings that comes from the other. As you being aware that the origin come also from the other. And this is very, very, very beautiful. I know that probably a lot of you already know and talk about empathy at some point in your lives, without even talking or knowing it specifically by these terms. We all have this. We all have this capacity. But what happens is that we are not talking about empathy. Sometimes we got related with the concept of empathy. Of course, we want to generate empathic-related behaviors. Of course, we want to talk about empathy. It's very important. But probably more important is what is next. Next is compassion. Compassion is when the act of doing, when you step forward and you do a step out of your comfort zone, where you give the other the possibility of being affected by your actions, like really doing And then there is altruism, a concept that is, of course, related with compassion. Now, I'm going to change the subject a little bit, maybe I go back a little bit, because I wanted to mention also that we when we were starting to think about this, we saw the concept of the walls, this idea of the other, what difference the other from us, and what does that imply, and of course we saw that there was like so many walls, intercultural, intergroupal, political, physical. So we definitely wanted to enter this idea of how we can break this. So we entered, and then we decided to what they are, like, the scientists are doing. So we look and we do our research, and we looked at science has been doing this for a while, and also with virtual reality, and they show that there is some walls that are created in our minds that can block a response to pain to others. So that is the relationship from the thing that I was talking before, because now we are going to enter this idea of how we can break these walls that are on our minds, And they observed that then we have implicit levels of biases. This can or may block the ability to feel the pain that we observe in the other. So for us, that was mind-blowing, that was crazy, and then we decided, this is very interesting. We decided to look forward, and then on the other hand, we saw that there was another scientist that using virtual reality started to find out ways to cross these walls, not to actually put yourself in someone else's shoes. So actually, when we were looking for it, we actually found scientists that were doing this, and that was very, very inspiring, amazing. We can talk you about the BeAnotherLab here in Barcelona, or Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, where they have this impressive research, so these body ownership illusions, that is immersive perceptive illusions, were actually real, and they were doing it by these scientists, and they were giving you this illusion of inhabiting the body of another person. That is what we call the embodiment, or the body ownership illusion. That is basically that you can cheat brain perception, or you can cheat the perception of your brain only using two senses, and a correlated stimuli, for instance, like the sight and the touch. So these scientists, they tested with subjects that had light skin, seeing themselves in the digital avatars with dark skin, and they observed a significant decrease of level of implicit bias. So I know that I asked this question many times, but imagine with me, what if we all can develop this ability to see through the eyes of the another? Can we understand ourselves as one single humanity living on the same place? I know I repeat myself, but it's quite basic and quite important. So believe me when I am insistent. So that's when we decided to hack to this neuroscience, neuropsychology, this virtual reality, everything that we were excited about it. We decided to hack these experiments and say, why don't we do it in a low-cost manner? Why don't we do it ourselves? Why don't we do it low-cost, do-it-yourself neuroscience? So based on these questions, we developed the system that is called the machine to be another, which is a system that tricks your brain perception about your own body and help people step in the shoes of a different person. while seeing and moving and touching and listening and having this, let's say, multi-sensory experience from the other perspective. You know? Also, a lot of duct tape and cables were mixed into the mix. Definitely is a project that has been in his majority self-funded, and by so we really bet for the low-cost construction. So from educational centers to artistic contexts to political events, we have been over almost 30 countries, helping people to step in the shoes of the other and experiencing the perspective of migrants in Europe with no legal papers. That was a project that we won an award, European Union Social Innovation Award, to actually do this work and research from refugees living in detention centers, from survivors from wars, no, or also people everyday life situations of people that are not privileged enough to being treated with humanity, you know. And we have been exploring gender identity and many aspects related to the simple existence of the human being. You know. So I'm going to show you a little piece that we showcased in London. It's the story of Chantal. This was 2017. She's an asylum seeker living in London at that time for over 15 years, still with no legal papers, still finding a way to be accepted as a citizen.
I still feel a victim as I was at those days, and now it's even worse because it's like the law of this country is rubbing it on my face that we know that you've been in pain, you've been in trauma, you've been, taken for a ride, and then we're gonna continue where they left off. Then abuse you more, interrogate you more, restrain you more. So I'm just wondering how someone can come from apartheid to a powerful racism. How long am I going to be bearing these pains?
Never experienced anything like that before in my life. I feel weirdly emotional at the end of that.
I know.
How is that for you? Emotional.
Yeah.
I can understand. It felt so intimate. Thank you for letting me go on that journey with you. I was worried when I sat down, first of all, that I'd be experiencing something alone.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what was going to happen, who I was going to meet.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to meet you and find out more about you.
Okay, no problem.
When you're taking part in that performance, during the virtual reality, what's it like? How do you feel when you're mirroring somebody else, when you were mirroring me?
I feel lighter because I don't have anything to worry about. There's no pain, everything just flowed. I feel natural, really. I feel like the way I'm supposed to be as a woman, pain-free, stress-free. I know that everybody has a problem, but mine, when I'm talking about, sometimes everybody, ew.
So this experience was transmitted by BBC World Service. So the journalists could see themselves in the body of Chantal, while Chantal will see themselves in the body of the journalist. When we have the experience from the other side of the curtain, the space in this setup, in this installation, is divided in two, like identical rooms. Well, Chantal in one side could feel that there was another person listening to her, supporting her. So Chantal, of course, feel relief, and there was a very clear moment where we noticed that the people that come also to join as a performer to show a little bit of their lives, the experience itself was relieving for them. So another story we recorded in Rio de Janeiro. It lets users experience the perspective of Maria Dalva, Maria d'Alba is the mother of Tiago, and Tiago was a kid, 19-year-old kid that was killed by the police. So he's a worker, young black man that was tortured and killed in front of his house without being to identify himself. No? Similar to some of the stories that probably you have been listening recently. So in this case, to Maria, through the body of Maria d'Alba, users can experience the story and feel a little bit of the absence of Tiago in the family, and all the dreams and all the things that they were not able to achieve. This country has 77% of assassinations among young men happens with black people. So at the end of the experience, you can actually hear the advice of his mother asking the people, the audience, the public, to not just to understand the perspective, but also the reality of so many police men that has been killing in the drug war also. Making it so clear that the so senseless that is the word in like against the drugs wars in Rio. So it seems that Maria d'Alba advice was actually scientifically correct, because the compassion practice has been shown a way not just to relieve the pain of the other, but to increase your own well-being as individuals in a society. So it's both ways. It's in the Machine to Be Another, we don't only frame pain, we also have been collecting several beautiful stories about love, friendship, memories, dreams. But even when there is a sad story, you can always find inspiring examples that guide you to a potential action that you can take. In general, when we work with the communities or the stories with people, it's always a very good positive vibe, even if they have like difficult stories. Often we come just as a friend, offering our friendship and talking about life. So often we got this like really positive energies, and we learn a lot, and everyone involved. So we believe that this kind of exercise and experiences really lets you take actions that are very simple, like understanding a problem through a broader perspective. Through this kind of icebreaker, you address a situation, you address a problem, you have this opportunity to talk about it, and then you can address it like from different perspectives, and it may help. They may help people to actually take actions in different levels, to actually go a little bit beyond. We have the example of Maria, a journalist from El País. She went to Rio de Janeiro and she swapped bodies with Luis Claudio, a very young, sweet man that was living in very hard conditions in the favela. And she was so touched that, like, as a journalist, writing the article was not enough for her, so she decided actually to do the step, engage and helping him to find a job, and then helping him to support his kids and so on. So that was a good example of what we were talking before about the compassion and the altruism. So yes, so our methodology has been using it, or has been applied for addressing the situation between migrants in Europe. So the through stations of the Machine to Be Another in libraries, cultural centers, civic centers, we will let users access an archive of stories from people all different in the world, in different perspectives, but with the intention of what we call hyperlocal storytelling. That is, people can affect their local context through this tool, to these workshops and their own communities, will be able to integrate this as a tool to promote mutual tolerance and understanding. So we are also connecting with local grassroots institutions that will facilitate the engagement into concrete actions in the community, in the local communities. So all of this is we truly believe that if we put yourself in someone else's shoe, or if you manage to actually think and do this in any level, we try, or at least we try to create a social change, a change in society, to people be more fraternal, to people to take simple actions, to not just give their opinion, but also like to do the step of gathering information, calling someone, moving some support, could be in time, could be in money, and that will help definitely to change the life of many people. So that's a little bit what we do, and the project is open. It's really open for anyone who has curiosity and want to be involved. We have open doors to always chat with you, and hopefully we can grow the community, the tool, and the methodologies, and to create more and more. But I wanted to talk to you as well about in a more technical level. So we go to technical. So I'm going to explain you the system of the machine to be another. So the machine to be another, it's divided, let's say, more or less in an easy way to understand, because it has many iterations, and we do many crazy experiments as well. So we have 3 interactive interfaces, and these 3 interactive interfaces, one is what we call embodied narratives, and the embodied narratives is when you have one user and one performer, and this performer follows the movement of the user, and this performer basically is someone that is willing to tell you a story of his life. And as you will see, you have 3 assistants, like the performer plus 2 assistants, to give the experience to one user. So in this sense, it's not too much scalable, in that sense, because it could be expensive for putting this in some commercial context. That's why we are a non-for-profit cultural association, because our work is more about the context, it's about the process, it's about connecting with people and having these empathic listening moments. So you have the user that has he sees and moves as he wants, but also he listens to the narrative of the performer. In this sense, you have agency of your movement. That means if you want to move your hand in a certain way, the performer will copy, and then you will see your hand moving in that direction. You have the body swap that probably some of you already know. The body swap is the 2 persons that swap bodies, and is also an installation, of course, that promotes is intended to promote respect, understanding, and mutual agreement. So in this experience, through a series of body interactions protocols, the installation allows you to exchange the perspective of the body. This is by the use of these swapped cameras. So apart from being a playful, friendly, and familiar experience that makes us reflect on our bodies, the body swap also works as a research platform for different issues or different intentions. For instance, for theories of gender, mindfulness, or many other topics related to proprioception of the body. So the experience lasts about 15 minutes approximately, and it consists of user interactions that are guided at some point, but some audios, but in general you are free to move as you want. So these user interactions between the users and the assistants create this playful moment, theatrical moment where you can play a little bit and get immersed into the experience. So there is a lot of feedback inputs, including mirrors, including taste, smell, wind, in order to reinforce the illusion. So after the users have accepted this new body of their own, because you have been in this curve of learning, that you're in your body, you start to move, and at some point the experience culminates when the users can see themselves from the perspective of the other. So you end up hugging yourself, giving the hand to yourself. And also a very beautiful thing is that at some moment the users have the instructions to copy and lead the movements of the other, to copy and follow the movements. And that is tricky because sometimes you lead the movement, sometimes you copy the movement. But the real magic begins when you lost this agency of the movement, and at some point you don't know who is leading and who is following. So it's very beautiful installation because you can go with someone you know or with someone that you don't know. And we have been having the best reactions. Some of the times that have been many times you also cry with the experience when you see the love between a couple of like a mother and daughter, and father and son or daughter, or like anything can happen in the body swap. We have been having stories about that people didn't know each other and they end up being a couple. We have that case in two occasions. So it seems that people have very, very nice moments with this. So finally, we have the library of ourselves. That is a project that uses the initiative, the system, or the methodology of the machine to be another, to create these pre-recorded virtual reality 360 films, allowing users to step into the shoes of others. So what does they have in special? These VR films, this archive of embodied narratives, is a library, it's an archive that is accessible through these physical stations that we call social virtual reality stations, that are meant to be implemented in different cultural, social, and educational institutions around the world. But there are not only VR films or VR 360 films. They have to be experienced to this multi-sensory approach that is a signature of the machine to be another. So the way of performing or having these experiences is having a person that it works as a guide, and another person is as user. So it's meant to be used by couples, but one person at a time has the role of user, and the other has the role of the guide. And then after the experience finish, they can swap roles, and the idea of this is that you have an opportunity to talk about the issue, to give a moment, to have a deeper reflection about the experience that you just had. So these experiences depends on how we want to address, but usually they are very natural. They come from the ideas of people that we met. So we encourage people that record their own stories, so we facilitate them. So at the end, they are the directors of the experiences, as much we are collaborators or co-directors, but we really want people to be like secure, that they have like a safe space where they can tell their story, and that is theirs. So at the end, for us, what it is important is the process. because in the process is where you have the most amazing findings, no? The bonding, the engaging with the community, the brainstorming itself, it is very special because it creates so many bonds and connections. So let's say that in some unexpected, crazy way, the workshops of the library of ourselves, when we go to a community and we implement the workshops and the process of listening to the communities, they become even more important than the final result. That is beautiful by itself, but and can be distributed in other places. But the process and the context is what it really matters on the experience, no? And so all the stories, when you are going to experience one story, you also know a little bit about the process of the creation. So then you have like a full idea of what happened in the experience. So it's just not the film. It's just really taking in mind the importance of the process. So the experience, it creates an ambient. You create a context in order to recreate it or to make it for if you are a guide for the user. So when you are experiencing the one content from the library of ourselves, so probably you will have the assistant that is giving you some multisensory stimuli, and that's quite an experience by itself. So you being as a guide, you will also have a very special experience, because you have to care about the other. You have to somehow put yourself in the shoes of the user in order to give them a great experience. So you care for them. You will put yourself in the situation of giving you the best that you can to give them the experience. So you have some audio and video instructions, and basically what you have to do is to replicate these instructions that you have in audio and video, and try to do a synchronicity, the best synchronicity possible, and that will enhance the level of immersion. But even if you are not like total synchrony or perfect at having the experience of being an assistant, people will actually understand as a user, and it will not mind that much. So it's about bonding. It's like a game, you know. It's about creating an space to interact and to reflect. Finally, I would love to leave you with a video that some of us inside the collective of BeAnotherLab, we describe a little bit of the synergies and the way how we understand of way of working in a very abstract way, but as being in this collective, it is also important for the project in the terms that we are based on friendship and synergies and learning to work with each other. So it has to be some levels of empathy between ourselves. So we hope you enjoyed this content that somehow describe or
touched
or experience
on my skin.
Intentions and the magic.
Unlimited
behind
experiences into another life. Conscious about myself, curious toward the other, exploring different realities and shifting between worlds. in this moment and space, reflecting and understanding, almost symbiote, realizing how different we are, and yet so the same. I hope to share this experience with you. I'll see you soon.
I've often had the thought of finding a double of myself, a duplicate. I imagine finding him, me, from a perspective that is unusual to the way I regularly see myself. Perhaps because I find myself lost between the first and the third person. I lately see my most vulnerable space more often, my skin. I guess it's in between where my skin lies. It's both the most vulnerable and the most visible. My soft bounds, my living scars, my anxiety, my care. And how can I learn to listen to my skin? What types of dialogue are we neglecting? In believing in the observer and the observed, in the normative world and an idea of the self separated from it, what world are we constructing? For me, the beauty of our collective lies in knitting spaces for dialogue. For a dialogue that goes beyond the verbal, where we melt into each other, observer and observed, not with answers, but in listening to and with our skins. And I find this important, but it's not easy. We are not very good at it, maybe, or it's just not compatible with the pace of our world. I work in science, and there it's different. I don't often find space for the words of the skin nor the dance of the voice. And by working there, I'm sometimes afraid of feeding and justifying a way of knowing that I find obsolete for transformation. Not to say that science and validated knowledge are not important, but we seem to insist in disregarding affect. Congruency is difficult in our uncertain world. With this uncertainty, academia is settling, an opportunity for me to stay in Europe, for example. I guess living in between perspectives, between academia and outside of it, between borders, ourselves and our skins, it's easy to not have clarity and to walk in a very loose ground. And having found in mutual touch a space of resistance, a pillar of our common work, who knows what lies ahead with this pandemic.
Quando a mãe estava contando a história da água, a chuva esqueceu de falar de nada.
Between what it is and what it could be, I drift on what if. What it would be like if care and love sprouted everywhere, in everyone.
Papai,
If everyone, without distinction, could be considered a fundamental part of the notion of we.
La pequeña Marina va al parque. Y el corderito.
papá, dá por favor as letras de água?
Sí, mi amor.
Could this world be built? You know, the feeling of giving something up to offer to someone? What if this someone is anyone?
Ela tá muito cheirosa, essa plantinha. Aquela lá também quer.
Vem, pega aqui.
Tá bom.
Com muito cuidado.
Eu sou a mamãe dos bichinhos.
É, você é a mamãe dos bichinhos.
Could it be that simple? Maybe just the effort of trying so, step into each other's shoes, is all we need to make it be.
E aí a lagoa ficou muito cheia.
É verdade? Muito cheio.
Maybe we're like babies, craving to feel and share belongingness, craving to respond through love. But as a mature society, we have a responsibility that urges to care and take care of all. To cultivate a world in which it's possible to sing Akuma Halemarke.
Talking about magic. So magic is this feeling of being connected to everything, this idea of having your eyes open to look for the signals, discovering the mystery, and then you see things. Basically you see relationship between ideas, between physical stuff, you know. So magic is this emotion, this moment in a space and time that in which you feel really connected. Let's say the flow, let's say this moment of light in your heart and in your mind. Papa con yuca, papa con yuca, papa con yuca, papa con yuca, papa con yuca. Estando en el pajar empiezo a escarbar, me acuerdo de la idea de la aguja, entonces empiezo a escarbar y de repente ¡pup! Ahí estaba una aguja debajo de 1 metro de paja en un sitio totalmente random que no tenía ni idea. Y lo interesante es que de alguna forma encontré esta sensación de alguna forma de incertidumbre, pero en el sentido de que no sabía si lo que pasaba era un invento de mi imaginación, si era real, si era lo correcto, si era lo que tenía que estar destinado a pasar. Y era un momento, digamos, de indecisión, ¿no? De donde algo no correspondía, pero al mismo tiempo todo correspondía. Y entonces me cuentan que posiblemente lo que pasó es que la aguja no estaba ahí, y que lo que yo hice fue que yo materialicé la aguja, que yo creé materia de la nada, que todos tenemos ese poder, que todos tenemos esa capacidad. Who should I listening to? To my mama? To my papa? To my amigos? Should I listen to my brain? To my heart? You should listen to Chueco. Chueco is the part of your brain, of your thinking, that doesn't know what it's doing. That's the Chueco. Comes from the heart, from the soul, spirit, crazy, the salsa, the cumbia.
My creative practice consists of writing. Writing in isolation and failing. This is not uncertainty, with its qualities of the unknown and of open-endedness and the sense of hope that might lie in there. This is precariousness, with its implication of being dangerously likely to fall or collapse. And uncertainty never scared me. My creative practice consists of dialogue, the conversational exchange between people, the literary forms that depict these transfers. Keine neue Welt ohne neue Sprache. No new world without a new language. It's one of Ingeborg Bachmann's most quoted sayings. New words are needed for any endeavor, be that marketing or world-changing. Words are not my allies, and my dialogues are imagined, fragmented, and short. My creative practice consists of voice. Voice is a materiality, an embodied practice, as well as a metaphor for representation. Ideas about voice, about language and speech are like everything, not universal nor natural, but culturally and historically specific. These ideas have repercussions for collective life, how voices are heard and recognized. Amanda Weidman talks about ideologies of voice. Voice ideology in Euro-America associates voice with interiority, truth, and self-expression. Keine neue Welt ohne neue Sprache.
As I moved to Switzerland, a few days before Europe was going into a complete lockdown, I faced a strange isolation, a mixture of safety and distanciation from my loved one, a shrinking of my social circle. In Switzerland, where the virus is neutral, people haven't felt the pain and anxiety other places have. As I strolled through the woods surrounding my apartment, I reflected on the new pace that was forced upon us. I've been wondering how my safety in the distance could be useful to others, how practicing restraint in my practice and my thinking, finding the right distance to be able to recognize the other and maintain our humanity. In the unfolding meltdown of the fabric of society, how we think as individuals, how we think as a species, will need to be adjusted. No amount of privilege, no amount of poetic justice will make any of this right. Not even the heroes and artists of the fourth turning.
From the perspective of someone who works on conflict, both intra and interstate conflict, in addition to being part of BeAnotherLab, as someone who happens to be at the UN, I also think about conflict fragmentations. Now, at the same time, you have growing mistrust in governments and any form of authority. You have the spread of mis and disinformation. In the midst of all of that, one of the things that I'm most inspired by in philosophy and systems thinking is the phenomenon of emergence. What we're trying to do as BeAnotherLab is find ways to create space for others to come in and occupy space when it comes to whatever access we have. How do we use those entry points that we have to create space for others to come in and occupy and fill in unique, artistic, playful, but also politically engaged ways that some type of transformation or the beginning of some type of transformation can happen. Then allowing, by creating those openings and by creating that space and by engaging in a deep listening exercise, allow for a range, a constellation of factors to come together, to make space for a type of emergence. In general, I think we have to think at an ecological level, that whole of ecological approach. You have humans and humans behaviors, you have machines and machine behaviors, and you have systems and system behaviors. And how can we observe and analyze and understand where all those things are, how they're working together, and think about what things we can tinker with here and there in order to nudge things in a different direction. By ensuring that we create a space for listening, we can get others to listen as well. Emergence, deep listening, creativity, and thinking at the level of machines, humans, and systems, and how they intersect.
What is in the in-between? Confluences between rivers on sea, tension between tectonic plates, misunderstandings and understandings between you and me, space between stars, between atomized, specialized, isolated, disenfranchised, alienated. Uncertainty fills every space between the discrete and certain, between a beginning and an end, life and death. Yet who we each are is defined by the spaces between us. Vulnerability, for sure, but also, maybe, possibility. How do we shift the spaces between, not to collapse them, but to expand and nurture that uncertainty into possibility? Trust in different ways of knowing, in different ways of listening. Where do we learn how to listen? More than silence, listening requires space. Carving it, holding it. Like any space, when there is a sound, it reverberates, it resonates and echoes back. I've learned that listening requires not just the attention on an external source, but also an awareness of its resonances within oneself. How does this resonate with my own contexts, experiences, knowledge, concepts, memories, emotions? And in echoing back these resonances, we find another step in listening. Another step into reconfiguring our constellations of knowledge, practice, and affect, expanding what is possible between.
Cuando esto me lo dijo un amigo, ¿no? Pensé, vale, pues es que tienes toda la razón, porque así es la vida, ¿no? Cuando el trabajo, las relaciones, cuando estás en un momento donde todo puede pasar, o bueno, o malo, o regular, pues precisamente en ese momento es donde tenemos la posibilidad de ser creadores, ¿no? Creadores de agujas como momentos, como emociones, como posibilidades. Entonces hay veces pasa que no sabes que lo que pasa es lo que tiene que pasar, pero una vez abres los ojos y lo ves, pues ya no tienes la indecisión. So what we really want to do, or what we're trying to do, or what we believe that we're doing, is to try to go deep and study this relationship between identity and empathy, and then explore all the possible scenarios that can come out of this. So we understood that there was like a huge possibilities also about this idea of expanding yourself, not just only about empathy, but just also to expanding yourself, to really growing yourself in a sense that you can really, through the helps of others, through the caring of others, you will be able to grow. And that was our goal, no? That was our identity, I guess, and still is if you can really put yourself in someone else's shoes, maybe you will figure out a way to understand better the other, no? Maybe to understand better yourself. And in that sense, we understand that we are part of a bigger collective that is humanity.